Welcome to Joy, Love, and Abundance, designed to lift up and explore the people, organizations, and experiences that create a more joyful, loving, and abundant world. Join hosts Rodney Eric Lopez, Patrice Tanaka, and Cyrus Webb as they share stories and insights that will inform and inspire you. Enjoy today's broadcast.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Joy, Love, and Abundance. I'm Cyrus Webb, excited to be back with our friends Patrice Tanaka and Rodney Eric Lopez for this week's episode. And we want to thank you all for tuning in, both on the radio side in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We're glad that you all could be with us, and those tuning in online through our various affiliates and podcasts. We're glad you all could be with us as well. Rodney and Patrice, it's great to be back with you guys. It's great to always be able to talk about things that have been able to not only bring us joy, love, and abundance, but also to be able to share that with our audience. How are the two of you feeling?
Good. Friday.
I'm feeling great. Yeah, it's Friday when we're doing this recording, and feels really great. I've had a wonderful week.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know, I think there's always so much that's happening in the world, and sometimes that kind of funnels into some of the things that we talk about here. But one of the things that I had mentioned to the two of you, because actually for a selfish reason, because I've been able to benefit from this recently, is as we're kind of going through life. I mean, I think one of the things we all have talked about on this platform is that we're not going through things alone, that we are not alone. And one of the things I've been able to benefit from, and I think you guys have as well, and I hope our audience has this privilege too, and that is the privilege of friendship. I think, you know, for myself, as I kind of think about myself being a natural introvert, I do appreciate my friends. I appreciate people who can speak truth to me, to be there to encourage me, but also to push me. And I'm glad to be able to do that for you, for them as well. So I'm curious for you guys, as our audience is kind of thinking about the people in their lives as well. Patrice, how important has friendship been for you when it comes to that idea of being able to find joy and being able to have that love and abundance?
Well, you know, having deep, rich, and close connections with others is really a big part of the joy in my life. And there was a time in my life where I was just focused on my career and was working crazy hours, 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. Normal week for you, Cyrus. So I was working so much that I really had no time for other than, work and those obligations related to work. And all of the people, my loved ones, my friends and family, were getting short shrift. And so I decided in this fourth new entrepreneurial venture that I created 5 years ago that I want to work, but I don't want to work to the exclusion of not having a lot of time that I could just enjoy being with people, friends and family, whether virtual or in person. Of course, in person is always much better. But even in this past year and a half, when, we couldn't easily meet in person, Zoom was our best friend, and we were able to really, kind of continue those connections via Zoom and actually make a lot of new friends via Zoom because everybody else was at home, also unable to go out freely. So it's been one of the gifts of this past year and a half, the joy of friends and friendship. So, yeah, that is huge for me. Thank you.
Yeah. And, Rodney, what about for yourself? I mean, I know that, as Patrice mentioned, that she's used to, enjoying life with others. How important has friendship been for you in your own joy, love, and abundance?
It's a great question, Cyrus, and it made me think about just the different kinds of friendships that I have, and I think about friendship through the lenses of the stages of my life. There are friendships that you make in your early years, whether it's, through school or through the neighborhood. And then there are the ones you make, let's say, when you're in high school or college. And those early relationships, those early friendships oftentimes tend to be the ones that are solid for your life because you share these really important formative experiences that you come back to. And then as Patrice mentioned, career, as you go through career, you pick up friends along the way because you wind up spending so much of your waking hours at work that those people that you spend probably more time with than anybody else wind up becoming your friends as well, if you are fortunate enough and lucky enough to enjoy the people that you work with. And I found that sometimes it's harder to make friends as you get older, particularly as you move, if you move from one location to another, or you move from one job to another, it becomes harder to keep those bonds alive because you've got family and you've got other responsibilities. And so I've found myself thinking very deeply about the importance of friendships, about maintaining long-standing relationships that go back to, some of my earliest years, but also thinking about what kind of quality do I want in my friendships today? Do I want somebody that I can have deep heart-to-heart conversations with, or is it enough to just have light talk over dinner, or on a Zoom, right? What are the qualities that I'm looking for in a friendship right now? And so I think at the end of the day, having friends that you can connect with, that you can bond with over interests or over experiences, just improve the quality of your life. And where you find them and how you source them might be different for different people. But I think ultimately any friendship that's worth keeping is a friendship you've got to pour into. It's a friendship you've got to cultivate. It's a friendship you have to spend time cultivating. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but it is something that needs tending. Some of the best friendships are the ones where you can call somebody up after a year of not having spoken and pick up where you left off. Those are great experiences. But I find that for me, I want to work better. I want to work harder at both developing and sustaining friendships, because it's such a life-giving part of our experience here on this earth.
Yeah. Hearing the two of you talk, it's really interesting. I was thinking about as Patrice was speaking, and then just Rodney, you then. It really shows how perspective is so important, right? Because as Patrice even mentioned, I love my work. My work, is something that I find fulfilling. However, it does not mean I don't like, spending time with people. But for me, it may not be as often as other people or in ways that other people do. But I think still having that engagement. I think about for those who are joining us during the month of September. September is Suicide Prevention Month, and I've shared my own story about being a suicide attempt survivor. And one of the things I always bring attention to during September is that a lot of times we don't think it's that it's the strong ones. We think we don't have to check on them. We don't have to they're good. Patrice, I want to ask you, how important is that for us, even for people who we think may be okay, right? Because people may look at the three of us and think, they're okay. I don't need to, I may be wondering how they're doing, but I don't need to actually check on them. If they have someone like that in their lives, how important is that just to let people know they're being thought of, even when it comes to not knowing what that can do for them, for their own love and joy in life?
Yeah, well, think of it when people reach out to us, right, who we haven't heard from in a while or we don't know very well. We're always so flattered and touched, right, and it does brighten our day. So, of course, the same holds true when we reach out and have those communications with someone like we might not have spoken to in a year and a half. But, hearing from us sometimes it's like, is the bright spot of their day or their week. And I've been told by people, this is the best thing that's happened to me all month. And, it's just I saw a post that someone did, and it's like, oh, my God, I haven't seen her in 5 years. Let me send her a quick note, see if we can do a quick catch-up. It's things like that. I actually love to, every week do those kinds of catch-ups. Like after this podcast, I'm going to be having a conversation with my former tennis coach who I haven't seen in probably 3 or 4 years. And he just wanted to talk about life purpose. So, I'm looking forward to that because I haven't spoken to him in a while, and, this is something that I would love to help him with. So, I know this is going to be one of the highlights of my week, as is this podcast. So, where I get to, and remember, the reason that I wanted to do this podcast was so that I could be in regular conversation with you, Cyrus, and also with Rodney, who I adore, who I worked with closely, when he was the executive director of a nonprofit that I continue to serve on. So it's just, staying connected. Otherwise, sometimes things, you lose contact, and it's, not good.
So true. Rodney, what about for you? I mean, as you were talking just a moment ago, and you were talking about, your own experiences. I mean, how important is that, do you think, for our audience to realize that even if it's someone they feel like, I don't need to check on that person. I know they're good. I know they're doing well. I see their post online. To be able to have that engagement. How important is that, do you think, for our audience when it comes to, being able to share that love, joy, and abundance for others?
Well, the central theme, right, of our conversations, our weekly conversations, is joy. And so I think anything that brings you joy is something you should do. If you have an impulse and it's a joyful impulse, follow that impulse. If seeing a social media post or hearing from a third party about a person you haven't seen or spoken to in a long time, and you feel that, your spirit knows when you want to do something and when you want to take an action. And so when you feel moved to reach out to somebody, whether it's sending a text or making a phone call or, sending a Facebook message, whatever it is, follow that impulse, because that means that there's something working inside of you and working in the universe that says, reach out to that person. And it can, even the smallest thing, as Patrice was saying earlier, even the smallest outreach can brighten up someone's day. You don't know how that's going to be received by the other person, whether you've spoken to them recently or you've spoken to them, it's been a long time since you've connected with them. You don't know how your outreach is going to impact someone else. If reaching out to someone makes you feel like it feels like an obligation, or it feels like a burden, or it feels like something you have to do, it's probably not motivated by joy. It's probably motivated by obligation and should, as opposed to something that's light and that brings you happiness. So I think if you're moved by joy, if you're moved by that good feeling, follow that and make those connections with those people, because it's those interactions that are really life-sustaining.
Yeah, such a great point. So I definitely encourage our audience, and know we all do, to do that, to be able to not only realize the importance of having great friends in your life when it comes to increasing your joy, love, and abundance, but also being that friend for someone else and being able to reach out and being able to let people know that you're thinking of them, they're on your mind. You never know what that's going to do for them, especially because we never know what someone is going through. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, you're listening to Joy, Love, and Abundance. You just heard there from Rodney Eric Lopez. Also, we're joined by Patrice Tanaka. I'm Cyrus Webb. Both for our radio audience and those tuning in online. Today we were talking about the importance and power of friendship when it comes to increasing our own joy, love, and abundance in life, and how that can really be a reciprocal thing. It's now time for that part of the show, though, where we bring attention to something that caught our attention this week. And Rodney, you had shared something really interesting that I know you had wanted to talk about. Why don't you share that with our audience?
Oh, I'm really happy to. So, one of the things that I'm personally passionate about, I've talked about it on this show before, is the relationship between, generosity and abundance, sort of adopting a giving practice in your life, and how that leads to experiences of abundance. And that can happen even if we feel we have a little. It's not about the amount of money we're giving or the amount of time we're giving. It's about the consistency and the practice of it. And so that's a big part of my work, sort of in my spare time, and something that I'm really passionate about, the relationship between giving, generosity, and the experiences of abundance and sufficiency, regardless of one's financial situation in life, right? And so there's a wonderful organization that's based out of Washington, D.C., that I've had the opportunity to speak with on a couple occasions. This organization's executive director, and I followed their work from afar. I've subscribed to their blogs and looked at a lot of their materials online. The name of the organization is called the Faith and Money Network. And so for any of our listeners out there who do have a faith practice, sort of an organized faith practice, this might be of interest to you. The Faith and Money Network, their mission is to equip people to build honest, just, and community-centered relationships with money, which I love because it isn't just about your personal relationship with money. It's also this idea of community-centered relationships, meaning that it's in community that we can have honest conversations about finances and the impact of our finances, not just in our own lives and for our families, but also what does that mean for how we show up in community. And so it's a really great organization. They have some wonderful tools that are available to people, like how to write a money autobiography, which is a big part of my work. Also, they have online study groups. They offer money mentoring services. They also do trips of perspective, which I love, which is they take a cohort of folks to go to places like Haiti or South Africa or places in South America and really examine the local economies of people in other parts of the world and have really generative conversations about consumption and consumerism and what does it mean to live lifestyles of generosity and abundance in other contexts outside of the American context. And so it's a really great effort. Mike Little is the leader of that organization down in Washington, D.C. And I just think for people who care about this topic, who really are interested in learning more about their relationships with money through the lens of a faith context, you can find some really wonderful resources online and in person. With this organization. It's Faith and Money Network, and you can find the information there on faithandmoneynetwork.org. We'll make sure to have that link in the show notes as well. So I've been wanting to talk about them for a few weeks, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to do that today.
Well, another organization doing some great work. Patrice, what about you? I know there was something you wanted to share about a nonprofit as well.
Yeah, and I totally subscribe to what Rodney says. There is a direct link between generosity and abundance. In fact, I don't think that we can have abundance in our lives or create abundance for ourselves without, being generous, ourselves. It's the flow of, giving and then receiving, and it's a beautiful thing. And in fact, I meet a lot of people through different things that I'm involved with, and one of these is the Girl Scouts of Greater New York. I've served on the board for probably 24 years now. And one of the amazing women that I've met, she serves on our leadership advisory board. Her name is Zainaid Mann, and she's a digital marketing consultant. But what I noticed that she did last April during, the start of the pandemic when we were shutting down, is that she started a nonprofit called the Black Women's Business Collective. And their mission is to expand the entrepreneurial opportunities for over 2 million Black and Afro-Latino women operating businesses in the U.S. and providing business education and training programs and access to funding, community support, and and other things to help overcome the systemic barriers to growth for Black and Latina women. So she started the Black Women's Collective, and I love their URL. It's www.allinmybusiness.com, and we'll put this in the show notes too. But one of the initiatives she started is called the Phoenix Fund, because what she realized in the women who are reaching out for support is that they were really needing support in some very basic ways, like graphic design support, support to get their website up and running, and website hosting and domain purchases, and state incorporation fees, which were not all big ticket things, but, these were the obstacles to some of them, actually starting and operating their business. So she started a Gofundme campaign. If you go to allinmybusiness.com, it'll lead you to the Gofundme page. And, she's funded some really wonderful I guess these are all for-profit businesses started by Black women and Latino women. Like there's one that I love called Wasted Wives. And the two women who started it actually said it was kind of a joke. It started as a hashtag Wasted Wives about women who were doing, so much in work and keeping their families together, and enjoying a little wine to take the edge off. So then they decided to start a wine subscription club, and so that's one of the businesses that the Phoenix Fund is funding. So I just love that even during the pandemic, when people were not thinking about supporting other people, but trying to figure out how they themselves were just going to get through, the pandemic, Zenaid was thinking about all these other Black and Afro-Latina women and came up with this and launched this. And now, there's a Phoenix Fund to really get to the heart of what is, preventing women from actually starting up and running their own entrepreneurial venture. So anyway, I just love this idea of what she did and the generosity that she, exhibited in doing this for so many other women. So anyway, that's what brought me a lot of joy this week.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, mine is a book. Surprise, surprise. I had a great guest come on Conversations Live, the radio show, as well as my Amazon Live TV program recently. And the author is Kevin Thomas McCarney, and he has written an amazing new book called Big Brain, Little Brain, and the subtitle is How to Control Which One Speaks for You. And it is all about communication and how when you choose to be thoughtful and engaging in your conversation, you are speaking in a big brain way. But when you choose to be crass, rude, arrogant, and unforgiving, that's your little brain that is speaking. So he basically breaks this down, and not only into the science of it, but also how the words we speak, the power they have, not only on others, but also on ourselves ultimately. Because a lot of times those words are things we may even speak to ourselves or about ourselves. And so I love this book so much because it really makes you think. He gives very personal examples of himself and what kind of helped him realize the difference in the big brain and little brain, but also how, this is something that we can apply in our personal lives, our professional lives, but definitely has a lot to do, as we're kind of thinking about the whole theme of joy, love, and abundance, of the way that people are able to see themselves, but also the way that we see ourselves as well, and how that really does begin with our talk, how we speak to ourselves and also speak to others. So I definitely wanted to make sure I highlighted that. Again, it's Big Brain, Little Brain by Kevin Thomas McCarney, a great book. I think that is so necessary because it really does tackle every aspect of life. And even though we know the power of words and how words can make a difference in someone's life, this book really helps to bring that home in such a big way. So I enjoyed the conversation with him and definitely enjoyed the book and would recommend that. Well, it has now come to that time, the end of another great show. And Patrice and Rodney, it is always a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you all discussing not only what is helping us and bringing joy, love, and abundance, but sharing with our audience as well what they can be able to take away and be able to think about as they're looking at their own lives and thinking about how they can cultivate joy, love, and abundance. Until next time, we do invite you guys to stay with us. If you're joining us on the radio side, we'll be back here next week. For those tuning in on the podcast, always make sure you guys check out the other episodes as well. A lot of great topics that we've been able to discuss all around this whole idea of cultivating joy, love, and abundance, and how it's something we can not only have for ourselves, but also, of course, for each other too. Until next time, you all have a great one. We'll be back here next time with more joy, love, and abundance. Take care.